Okay, so today we're tackling a really tough but incredibly important topic, femicide in Brazil. We're going to use data and research to really understand what happens when a country decides to legally name a crime that's born from misogyny. We'll look at the law, the numbers, and the huge social impact of just giving this violence a specific name.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll define what this crime actually is. Then we'll get into Brazil's legal response. After that, we'll dig into the hard data to see what, if anything, has changed. We'll also highlight the critical support networks available, and then we'll wrap things up by talking about why the simple act of naming this crime is so powerful.
All right, let's just dive right in. And we have to start with the brutal reality of what we're talking about here. These words, they're pulled right from an analysis of femicide in Brazil. And you can see they're not just a list. These are the weapons, the actual methods. It immediately grounds us in the physical, violent reality we're discussing. It's a tough thing to see, for sure, but it's an essential starting point.
So that brings us to the official definition. Femicide, or feminicidio in Portuguese, isn't just any murder. The law is very specific. It's the killing of a woman because she is a woman. And look at the motivations listed: hatred, contempt, or even a sense of ownership. That's the key right there. It shows that the crime is rooted in misogyny.
And here's something that's absolutely critical to understand. A femicide is almost never an event that happens out of the blue. It's the final, tragic act in what experts call a continuum of violence. Think about it like the tip of an iceberg. Underneath the surface, there's often a long history of other kinds of abuse: psychological, emotional, and physical.
Now, to make an already traumatic situation even worse, there's this concept called revictimization. Just imagine this for a second. You survive a violent attack. You finally get the courage to seek help. And then you're forced to tell your story over and over and over again to different officials, reliving it each time. This happens when the support systems aren't working together, and honestly, it can be so painful that it stops women from even trying to get help.
So that's the problem. How did Brazil as a country decide to fight back? Let's get into the legal side of things.
Well, the legal groundwork really started back in 2006 with the famous Maria da Penha law, which was a huge step against domestic violence. But the real turning point was 2015. That year, the femicide law was passed, officially creating the crime. And right away, it was classified as a heinous crime, which in Brazil is a big deal. It means tougher sentences, no bail, no amnesty.
Okay, so what did this law actually do? What changed on paper? It basically created a new category of qualified homicide. A murder becomes legally classified as femicide if it's done for reasons of the female sex condition. That includes domestic violence situations or any time the crime shows contempt or discrimination against women. It legally separated these murders from all other types of homicide.
All right, so we've got the law. And that leads to the million-dollar question, right? Did it actually work? Let's take a look at the numbers.
It seems like a pretty straightforward question, doesn't it? But as we're about to see, the answer is, well, it's complicated.
Take a look at this chart. It shows the rate of femicides for every 100,000 women. And right away, you can see it's not a simple story of the numbers just dropping.
And the specific numbers here really tell the story. Right after the law passed in 2015, there was a drop. It went from 5.39 down to 5.1, and it even went a little lower in 2016. But then, look what happens in 2017. The rate climbed right back up. This suggests that, yeah, the law might have had an initial impact, but it wasn't some kind of silver bullet. The problem is just so deeply rooted that a legal change, while super important, wasn't enough on its own. You know, a law is just one piece of the puzzle. Another absolutely critical part of the response is the support system for women who are facing violence right now. So let's look at where they can turn for help. If there is one single thing you take away from all this, let it be this number, 180. Just 180. This is the number. It's Brazil's 24/7, completely free, and confidential national hotline for women experiencing violence. It's basically the heart of the entire support network.
And what's so smart is how they've modernized it. It's not just a phone number anymore. You can get help through WhatsApp, Telegram, a dedicated app on your phone, and a government website. The whole idea is to make it as easy as possible for a woman to reach out, whatever her situation might be.
That hotline isn't just a voice on the phone either. It connects women to real, physical places of safety and support, like the Casa da Mulher Brasileira. Now, these centers are designed to be a one-stop shop. They have police services, lawyers, counselors, all under one roof. And why is that so important? Well, remember what we said about re-victimization? These places are designed specifically to stop that from happening.
Okay, let's bring this all together for our final section. If the numbers show such a complicated picture, then why is the act of simply naming femicide so important? What's the law's real impact beyond the statistics?
At the end of the day, it all comes down to visibility. By calling the crime femicide, the state and society are forced to admit that these aren't just random crimes of passion. They are the end result of a systemic, gender-based problem. One researcher said it perfectly: it removes the veil, forcing everyone to confront the misogyny at the heart of the violence.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. There's actually a debate happening inside the Brazilian government about the right word to use. You can see here that in public policies, the executive branch uses the term gender, gênero. But the actual femicide law, which came from the legislative branch, uses the term sex, sexo.
And you might think, okay, sex, gender, what's the big deal? But it's a huge deal. It gets to the very heart of the question. Is this violence happening because of a woman's biological sex, or is it because of her socially constructed gender role in a patriarchal society? For many feminists, using the word gender is a form of empowerment because it points to a cultural problem, something that can be changed, not a biological fact.
And that really brings us to the big takeaway. The data shows us the femicide law didn't magically stop the killings overnight, but its true success might not be something you can measure on a chart. By officially naming the crime, the law started the much longer, much harder work of changing an entire culture. So it leaves us with a fundamental question to think about. How do we measure a law's success? Is it only in the numbers, or is it in its power to reshape a society?